My name is Maud Thompson, and at 62 I thought I knew what family meant. I spent $18,000 on a dream Christmas vacation to Hawaii for my daughter Stephanie, her husband Kyle, and their kids, my precious grandchildren Emma and Jackson. It was supposed to be our magical family reunion after 2 years apart, but when I discovered their secret group chat, planning to ditch me on Christmas Day, something inside me finally broke. Before you judge my decision to cancel everything, let me tell you what really happened. If you're watching this, drop a comment, letting me know if you've ever felt betrayed by family, and subscribe to follow my journey. Life has a way of teaching us lessons when we least expect them. After losing my husband Frank to cancer 7 years ago, I thought I had experienced the worst pain life could offer. Frank and I had been married for 35 years, building our life together brick by brick. We weren't wealthy, but we were comfortable. As a school principal for nearly 3 decades, I had put away a decent nest egg, and Frank's life insurance policy provided additional security for my retirement years. Stephanie was our only child. She came after years of trying and several heartbreaking miscarriages. From the moment she was born, she became the center of our universe. Frank and I poured everything into raising her, our love, our time, our resources. We attended every soccer game, every dance recital, every parent-teacher conference. When she decided to pursue nursing, we supported her through college, helping with tuition, and encouraging her through difficult exams. I still remember the pride in Frank's eyes when she graduated with honors. The relationship between Stephanie and me grew even stronger after Frank's passing. During that first year of grief, she would call me daily, often stopping by with coffee, just to check on me. She understood my pain in a way no one else could. We would sit together on the porch swing that Frank had built, sometimes talking for hours, other times just sitting in comfortable silence. Those moments kept me tethered to life when grief threatened to pull me under. 5 years ago, Stephanie met Kyle Wilson through a mutual friend. He seemed charming enough, handsome, with a successful career in marketing. Their courtship was whirlwind fast. Within 6 months, they were engaged, and 3 months after that, married in a small ceremony. I remember feeling a slight uneasiness at the speed of it all, but I dismissed it as a mother's natural worry. All I wanted was for my daughter to be happy. Emma came along a year before they married. Kyle had officially adopted her after the wedding. 2 years later, they welcomed Jackson. My grandchildren became my new purpose. Emma, with her curious mind and artistic talent, reminded me so much of Stephanie at that age. Jackson, with his gentle spirit and infectious laugh, had Frank's eyes. Being a grandmother brought a joy I hadn't expected would fill my life again. But things began to change subtly after they married. The daily calls became weekly, then bi-weekly. Our Sunday family dinners dwindled from every week to once a month, then to special occasions only. I noticed how Stephanie would check with Kyle before making any plans with me. Small comments from Kyle about my parenting advice being outdated or how I hovered too much around the children began to sting. Still, I said nothing, believing that stepping back was part of allowing my daughter to build her own family. Then came the announcement that truly shook my world. 2 years ago, Kyle received a promotion that required relocating 1,500 miles away. I still remember Stephanie's face when she told me, a mixture of excitement and guilt. She promised we would visit often, that technology would keep us connected, that the distance was just physical. I smiled and congratulated them because what else could I do? Parents don't stand in the way of their children's opportunities. But that night alone in my house that suddenly felt too big and too quiet, I cried until no more tears would come. The distance proved more challenging than any of us anticipated. Video calls with the grandchildren helped, but they weren't the same as holding them in my arms or watching their faces light up when I surprised them with small gifts. Emma was growing so quickly, losing teeth and learning to read. Jackson was developing his own personality, no longer the baby I had known. I visited twice that first year, staying in their guest room, trying not to feel like an intruder in their busy lives. I noticed how Stephanie seemed tense during my visits, how conversations would stop when I entered a room. Through it all, I maintained a brave face. When friends asked how I was doing, I would smile and talk about how wonderful technology was for keeping families connected. I joined community groups and volunteered at the local library to fill my days. But nights remained the hardest, especially around holidays when memories of family gatherings felt most painful. That's when I came up with what I thought would be the perfect solution: a family vacation. Not just any vacation, but a truly special Christmas trip that would give us uninterrupted time together. A chance to rebuild the closeness we had lost, to create magical memories with my grandchildren, to remind Stephanie of the bond we once shared. I would spare no expense to make it perfect. For months, I researched destinations, eventually settling on Hawaii. The tropical paradise seemed ideal, warm enough for beach days in December, filled with activities for both adults and children, and far enough from both our homes to feel like a true escape. I pictured us all together on the beach, building sandcastles with Emma and Jackson, watching sunsets with Stephanie, reminiscing about Frank, and how much he would have loved seeing his grandchildren play in the ocean. I withdrew money from my retirement savings, telling myself that memories were more valuable than money in the bank. What good was saving for a future that might not include my family anyway? This trip would be my gift to all of us, a chance to reconnect and rebuild what we had lost. At least that's what I believed. Little did I know that my $18,000 dream would soon become a nightmare that would force me to redefine what family truly means. Hawaii had always been a dream destination for our family. Frank and I had planned to go for our 40th anniversary, a milestone we never reached. Using the money we had set aside for that trip felt right somehow, like Frank was still part of our family adventure. I spent countless evenings researching the perfect location that would appeal to everyone, a resort with both kid-friendly activities and adult amenities close to attractions, but private enough for quality family time. After comparing dozens of options, I finally settled on the Royal Palms Resort on Maui's western shore. The property featured 2 swimming pools, one with a children's water play area that Jackson would love, and direct beach access, where Emma could collect shells. Their family suites offered ocean views and enough space for us all to be comfortable without feeling crowded. The resort also provided childcare services, which would allow Stephanie and me some mother-daughter time, while Kyle could enjoy golfing or whatever activities he preferred. I spent 6 months planning every detail, often staying up late reading reviews and creating spreadsheets of options. I wanted this trip to be perfect, a Christmas none of us would ever forget. I booked 2 connecting oceanfront suites for 10 days, starting December 20th through December 30th. The timing would allow us to spend Christmas together in paradise, while still giving everyone a day to recover before returning to work and school. Beyond the accommodations, I arranged special experiences I knew would create lasting memories. I booked a private family luau on the beach for Christmas Eve, complete with traditional dancers and a feast. For the day after Christmas, I reserved a guided snorkeling tour to a sea turtle sanctuary that the educational website said was appropriate for children, Emma and Jackson's ages. As a special gift for Stephanie and Kyle, I arranged for a couples massage at the resort spa, planning to watch the children myself during that time. The crown jewel of my planning was a helicopter tour of the island, scheduled for December 27th. The tour company assured me it was safe for children, and the aerial views of waterfalls and volcanoes would be breathtaking. I imagined the wonder on my grandchildren's faces as they soared above the lush landscape, and how Stephanie would squeeze my hand the way she did when she was little, and experiencing something amazing for the first time. Making this dream a reality meant financial sacrifices. The 2 suites alone cost nearly $10,000 for the 10-day stay. The special experiences, dining reservations, and airfare for all 5 of us pushed the total to $18,000. I had to dip into my retirement savings, but I convinced myself it was worth it. What was the point of having money if not to create joy for the people you love most? I canceled my plans to replace my aging car and put off some needed home repairs. None of that mattered compared to reuniting my family. In September, 3 months before the trip, I finally revealed the surprise to Stephanie during a video call. I had mailed her a package containing beach hats for everyone with a note explaining the gift. I timed my call to coincide with the package delivery. I still remember the look of shock on her face as she opened it. "Mom, this is huge," she stammered, eyes wide as she read the details. "Hawaii for Christmas for all of us." "Yes, sweetheart. 10 days at a beautiful resort in Maui. I've booked everything. The flights, the rooms, even some special activities. It's my gift to all of you," I explained, barely containing my excitement. After a moment of silence that made my heart skip a beat, Stephanie's face broke into a smile. "Kyle, kids, come see what Grandma sent us," she called. When the children saw the colorful beach hats and heard about the trip, they jumped with excitement. Emma immediately asked if she could see dolphins, while Jackson wanted to know if we could build a giant sandcastle. Kyle's reaction was more reserved. He smiled and thanked me, but I noticed him exchange a quick glance with Stephanie. At the time, I dismissed it as simple surprise or perhaps concern about taking time off work. In retrospect, I should have paid more attention to that look. Over the next weeks, I threw myself into preparations. I bought new swimsuits for everyone, beach toys for the children, and even a waterproof camera to capture underwater memories during our snorkeling adventure. I ordered custom Christmas stockings, embroidered with each person's name and a small palm tree, planning to fill them with tropical-themed gifts and hang them in our suite on Christmas morning. As October turned to November, I began counting down the days. 60 days, then 45, then 30. I created a shared online document with packing lists and travel tips, sending Stephanie reminders about passports and what medications to pack for the children. I scheduled a hair appointment and a manicure for the week before our departure, wanting to look my best for the family photos we would take against the backdrop of Hawaiian sunsets. The colder it got in my Midwestern town, the more I dreamed of warm Hawaiian beaches and the warmth of being surrounded by my family again. Each time I spoke with the grandchildren, I dropped hints about our upcoming adventure without revealing too many details, wanting to preserve some surprises. I practiced saying, "Mele Kalikimaka," Hawaiian for Merry Christmas, planning to teach it to Emma and Jackson when we arrived. If only I had known then what I know now. If only I had recognized the signs that something wasn't right. But hope is a powerful force, and I was blinded by my desire to believe that this trip would heal whatever distance had grown between us. I was so focused on creating the perfect Christmas that I missed the warning signs of the heartbreak to come. By early December, with only 3 weeks until our departure date, I began noticing subtle changes in Stephanie's behavior during our weekly video calls. Where before she had asked enthusiastic questions about our itinerary and accommodations, now she seemed distracted, often changing the subject when I mentioned specific plans for Christmas Day or activities I had arranged. So, for Christmas morning, I thought we could open presents on our private lanai overlooking the ocean. The resort said they can set up a small decorated tree in our suite, I explained during one call, watching her face for the excitement I expected. That sounds nice, Mom," she replied vaguely, then immediately pivoted. "Oh, did I tell you Emma lost another tooth yesterday?" This pattern continued with increasing frequency. When I emailed her links to restaurant menus, asking for her input on Christmas dinner reservations, her response came days later with just, "Whatever you think is best. They all look good." When I asked if the children had any requests for their stockings, She said she would ask them, but never got back to me with an answer. Kyle's presence during our video calls also changed. Previously, he would at least make a brief appearance to say hello before leaving Stephanie and the children to chat with me. Now, he seemed to hover in the background occasionally, whispering something to Stephanie that would make her expression shift. Several times I noticed him shaking his head slightly in response to something I said about the trip. During a call in mid-December, I overheard a fragment of conversation that planted the first seed of real concern. "Your mom doesn't need to know yet," Kyle said to Stephanie, apparently unaware that the microphone could pick up his voice from across the room. When Stephanie noticed me peering into the camera with confusion, she quickly explained that they were discussing Christmas presents they had bought for me, but something in her nervous laugh didn't ring true. I tried to dismiss my growing unease as pre-holiday stress. After all, December was a busy time for everyone with school activities for the children and year-end deadlines at work. Perhaps Stephanie was just overwhelmed with preparations for the trip on top of everything else. I sent her reassuring messages reminding her that I had taken care of all the planning details and all they needed to do was pack and show up at the airport. My concerns deepened when I ran into Teresa, a woman from Kyle's office who had relocated to my town earlier that year. We crossed paths at the grocery store, and I mentioned my excitement about spending Christmas with my family in Hawaii. "Oh, that's interesting," she said, her expression puzzled. "I thought Kyle mentioned his parents were joining them for Christmas this year. Something about a family tradition they were planning to continue." My heart sank. Kyle's parents lived in California and had never been mentioned in any of our trip discussions. I crafted a vague response about extended family, sometimes joining holiday celebrations, and quickly changed the subject, but the encounter left me deeply unsettled. That evening I called Stephanie directly, hoping to catch her alone, while Kyle was at his company holiday party that I knew was scheduled for that night. "Sweetheart, is there something going on that I should know about? I ran into Teresa today, and she mentioned something about Kyle's parents and Christmas plans," I said, trying to keep my voice casual. "Teresa should mind her own business," Stephanie snapped, then immediately softened her tone. "Mom, everything's fine. We're all looking forward to Hawaii. I've just been stressed with holiday stuff and work." "Are Kyle's parents planning to join us on the trip? Because that would change our accommodation needs," I pressed gently. No, nothing like that. Look, I need to go help Emma with homework. Can we talk later this week?" she replied hurriedly, ending the call before I could respond. That night I barely slept, turning over every recent interaction in my mind, searching for clues I might have missed. The next morning I tried again, sending a text asking Stephanie to call me when she had a private moment to discuss the trip details. Her response came hours later. "Super busy right now, Mom. Everything's good with the trip, trust me." But I didn't trust that everything was good. After decades of knowing my daughter, I could sense when she wasn't being forthright. Still, I continued making excuses for her behavior. Perhaps she was planning a surprise for me. Maybe there was a work issue she didn't want to worry me with. I desperately wanted to believe any explanation other than the one my intuition was increasingly suggesting, that my daughter and her husband were hiding something significant from me. As the departure date drew closer, my anxiety grew. I left increasingly direct voicemails asking for confirmation about arrival times and transportation from the airport to the resort. Most went unanswered, and those that did receive responses were met with vague reassurances that felt hollow. The final straw came when I called the resort to confirm our Christmas Day dinner reservation and was told by the booking agent that there had been a request to change it from a party of 5 to a party of 6. When I inquired who had made this change, I was informed it had come through the same email address I had used for the original booking. My email address. Someone had accessed my account. The sense of violation was profound, but it was nothing compared to what I would discover just days later. The week before our scheduled departure, I decided to fly to Stephanie's city to help with last-minute preparations and travel together to Hawaii as a family. In hindsight, I realize I was also hoping that face-to-face interaction would resolve the tension I had been sensing. I arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, our flights to Hawaii booked for early Friday morning. The greeting at their home was strained. Stephanie hugged me briefly. Kyle offered a perfunctory handshake, and while the children were genuinely excited to see me, they were quickly ushered off to finish school projects before the trip. The house had a strange energy, like everyone was performing in a play with poorly rehearsed lines. "Your room is all set up, Mom," Stephanie said, leading me to their guest bedroom. "We have a busy evening with Emma's school concert, so we'll have to catch up tomorrow." I nodded, understanding that family life continued even with a vacation approaching, but the lack of any meaningful conversation about our imminent trip struck me as odd. No excited discussion of what to pack, no shared anticipation of island adventures, just polite distance. That evening, after returning from Emma's concert, where I sat in the audience feeling more like a distant relative than a grandmother, I realized I had forgotten to check if the resort offered early check-in on our arrival day. I reached for my phone to find it completely dead. I had forgotten to pack my charger in the rush to make my flight. Knowing Stephanie kept a tablet in the kitchen for looking up recipes and family scheduling, I went downstairs after everyone had gone to bed. The house was quiet, the only sound the gentle hum of the refrigerator and the distant tick of a wall clock. The tablet sat on its charging stand on the kitchen counter. I picked it up, planning to quickly check my email and the resort website. When the screen lit up, it was already open to a messaging app. I was about to close it and open the browser when a group chat name caught my eye. Christmas 2025, no mom. The most recent message visible on the screen was from Kyle. "Everything set for Christmas Day. Parents arrive at 6 a.m., we leave by 7. Maud won't suspect anything." My hands trembled as I tapped on the chat. Ethical considerations about privacy flashed through my mind, but they were quickly overwhelmed by the sinking realization that whatever was happening directly involved me. I needed to know the truth. What I found shattered my heart into pieces. The chat included Stephanie, Kyle, and his parents dating back nearly 2 months. They had been planning in secret to spend Christmas Day, the centerpiece of our family vacation, without me. Kyle's parents had booked their own room at the same resort. The plan detailed how they would all sneak out early Christmas morning for a special breakfast and full-day excursion to another island, leaving me alone on what should have been our family Christmas. "Mom will probably sleep in anyway," Stephanie had written. "By the time she realizes we're gone, we'll be on the boat to Lanai. We can just say we didn't want to wake her and thought she could use the rest." Kyle's messages were even more hurtful. "We deserve one day without the constant supervision and commentary. The kids are excited about spending Christmas with both sets of grandparents for once." His mother had chimed in, "We've never had a Christmas with just us and the grandkids. Maud gets them every year. It's our turn." The messages continued detailing their secret plans, how they would handle my inevitable upset when I discovered their absence, and how they would return in the evening, acting as though their abandonment was completely normal. They even discussed keeping their phones off during the day, so I couldn't reach them. I sat frozen at the kitchen counter, the tablet's blue light illuminating tears I didn't even realize were streaming down my face. The physical pain in my chest was so intense, I momentarily wondered if I was having a heart attack. How could my daughter, the little girl I had nursed through illness, cheered at every accomplishment, and supported through every challenge, conspire to exclude me this way? How could she sit across from me at dinner just hours ago, knowing what they had planned? I don't know how long I sat there scrolling through weeks of messages, each one another dagger to my heart. References to me as controlling, suffocating, and high maintenance appeared repeatedly. Jokes about how I would react to their deception. Detailed plans for their mom-free day that I had unknowingly financed. Around 2 in the morning, I heard footsteps on the stairs. I looked up to see Stephanie standing in the doorway, her expression shifting from surprise to horror as she registered what I was reading. "Mom, that's private?" she gasped, rushing forward to grab the tablet. I held it away from her reach, my voice unnaturally calm considering the storm raging inside me. "Private, like your plans to abandon me on Christmas Day after I spent $18,000 on this trip for us to be together." Her face flushed with a mixture of guilt and defiance. "You weren't supposed to find out like this." How was I supposed to find out when I woke up alone on Christmas morning, when I waited all day wondering where my family had disappeared to? My voice broke the calm facade crumbling. Kyle appeared behind Stephanie, alerted by our voices. His face hardened when he saw the tablet in my hand. "Great," he muttered. "Now we'll never hear the end of this." "Kyle, don't," Stephanie warned, but he stepped forward anyway. "Look, Maud, we appreciate the trip, we do. But you have to understand that your expectations are suffocating. Everything has to be your way on your schedule with your commentary on how everything should be done. So, your solution was to lie to me to plan to abandon me on Christmas Day?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "It's just one day," Stephanie interjected as if that somehow made it better. "My in-laws wanted some special time with the kids too. They're their grandparents just as much as you are." "Then why not tell me that? Why the secret chat? Why the lies?" I demanded, my voice stronger now as anger began to rise above the hurt. "Because you would have made it difficult," Kyle said flatly. "You would have guilted. Stephanie made her feel terrible for wanting to spend time with both sides of her family." "That's not true," I protested, though a small voice inside wondered if there was some truth to his accusation. Had I been too possessive, too demanding of Stephanie's time and attention? "Isn't it?" Kyle challenged. "Look how you're reacting now. This is exactly why we kept it from you. Everything becomes a drama with you, Maud." Finding out my family was plotting behind my back to exclude me on a holiday I planned and paid for isn't drama, Kyle. It's a betrayal, I said, rising from the stool I had been perched on for hours. Stephanie stepped between us, her face pleading. "Mom, please try to understand. We love you, but sometimes we need space. My in-laws rarely get holiday time with the kids, and they specifically asked for Christmas Day this year. And you couldn't have discussed this with me, found a compromise that didn't involve deceiving me." I asked, the hurt evident in every word. "We knew how important this Christmas was to you," she admitted quietly. "We didn't want to disappoint you. So instead, you chose to lie to me and break my heart." I concluded, the full weight of their betrayal sinking in. In that moment, looking at my daughter and the husband who seemed to have turned her against me, I felt more alone than I had since Frank's death. The confrontation continued into the early morning hours, painful words exchanged that could never be taken back. But as dawn broke over their suburban neighborhood, one thing had become crystal clear to me. I could not proceed with this vacation as planned, not with the knowledge I now possessed, not with the fractures in our relationship, so glaringly exposed. Something fundamental had broken between us, and no Hawaiian sunset would be beautiful enough to repair it. I spent the rest of that night in the guest room, alternating between fits of silent tears and stunned disbelief. The conversation had ended with Kyle storming back upstairs after telling me I was making a mountain out of a molehill, and Stephanie giving me a tearful but ultimately unsatisfying apology that focused more on me discovering their plan than on the plan itself. "We should all get some sleep," she had said finally. "We can talk more in the morning when everyone's calmer." But calm was the last thing I felt as I lay in that unfamiliar bed, the ceiling fan whirring above me like the thoughts spinning in my head. I reached for my phone out of habit before remembering it was dead. Disconnected from everything and everyone. It seemed a fitting metaphor for my current situation. As the first light of dawn filtered through the guest room blinds, I realized I hadn't slept at all. My eyes were swollen from crying, and my chest felt hollow, as though something vital had been scooped out. But amid the emotional devastation, a quiet voice of clarity began to emerge. I could not continue with this trip, as though nothing had happened. I could not pretend that their planned abandonment was acceptable. For perhaps the first time in my life as a mother, I needed to put my own well-being first. I waited until I heard movement in the house, the coffee maker gurgling cabinet doors opening and closing, before venturing downstairs. Stephanie was in the kitchen, already dressed for the day, pouring coffee into a travel mug. She looked up when I entered, her expression guarded. "I called in to work," she said, as though last night's revelations hadn't occurred. "Thought we could talk and then maybe do some last-minute shopping for the trip." Her forced brightness felt like another slap in the face. "There isn't going to be a trip, Stephanie. Not for me, anyway," I said quietly, the decision crystallizing as I spoke the words. She set down the coffee mug with a thunk. "What, Mom, you're overreacting. It was just a plan for one day." "It wasn't just about one day," I interrupted. "It was about the deliberate deception, the weeks of planning behind my back, the things you and Kyle and his parents said about me in those messages." I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "I can't go on this trip knowing how you all truly feel about me." "That's not fair," Stephanie protested. "We said some things in frustration. Everyone vents sometimes." "Venting is one thing. Conspiring to exclude me on a holiday I planned and paid for is something else entirely," I replied. "I need some time to think about what this means for our relationship going forward." "So you're punishing all of us, including Emma and Jackson, because your feelings are hurt?" She challenged, anger rising in her voice. "I'm not punishing anyone. I'm removing myself from a situation that would be painful and humiliating for me," I explained, working to keep my voice level. "You, Kyle, and his parents can still go if you want to. I won't be joining you." Stephanie's face flushed with indignation. "And how exactly would that work? Are you going to cancel everything? The resort? The flights? All of it?" "The reservations are in my name. I'll call the travel agent this morning," I said, already dreading the conversation, but knowing it was necessary. "You can't do that. The kids have been looking forward to this trip for months." "Do you have any idea how disappointed they'll be?" Her voice rose, and I could hear the panic setting in as she realized I was serious. "I'm disappointed too, Stephanie. Deeply disappointed that my own daughter would treat me this way," I replied, my voice finally breaking. "I never thought you capable of such cruelty." "It wasn't cruel. It was one day when you weren't going to be the center of attention," she fired back. "If that's really how you see this situation, then we have even bigger problems than I thought," I said softly. "I'm going to pack my things and check into a hotel. I'll be on the first flight home I can get." "Fine. Run away then." Stephanie snapped, tears of frustration welling in her eyes. "This is exactly what Kyle meant, about you being dramatic and making everything about yourself." Her words cut deep, but I refused to engage further. I turned and walked back upstairs, each step requiring enormous effort, as though my body had aged decades overnight. As I packed my small suitcase, I could hear Stephanie on the phone, presumably with Kyle. Her voice agitated, though the words were indistinct. Once packed, I called for a rideshare on the tablet I had brought upstairs with me, then opened my laptop and found the email for the travel agent who had helped me book the trip. I had spoken with her numerous times over the months of planning, and I knew she began work early. Sure enough, an away message indicated she would be in the office at 7:30. It was now just after 7. I sat on the edge of the bed, surrounded by the growing sounds of the household waking up. Children's voices drifted down the hallway. Emma and Jackson, innocent in all this, would indeed be disappointed. The thought pierced through my resolve for a moment, but then I remembered the messages. Mom will probably sleep in anyway. We deserve one day without the constant supervision and commentary. The hurt reasserted itself, reinforcing my decision. When my phone alerted me that my ride was approaching, I carried my suitcase downstairs. Stephanie stood in the living room, arms crossed, her expression a mixture of anger and disbelief. "You're really doing this," she stated flatly. "Yes, I am," I confirmed, setting my suitcase by the door. "I'll let you know what the travel agent says about the reservations." "Can I at least tell the kids you're leaving? They'll want to say goodbye," she said, her voice softening slightly. I hesitated, torn between wanting to see my grandchildren one last time and fearing that the emotional goodbye would weaken my resolve. "If they're awake, yes, but I won't wake them." Stephanie disappeared down the hallway, returning moments later with Emma and Jackson both still in their pajamas, confusion evident on their sleepy faces. "Grandma has to go home early," Stephanie explained, her tone carefully neutral. "Come say goodbye." They shuffled over to me and I knelt down to their level, fighting back tears. "I love you both so much," I said, gathering them into a hug that I wished could last forever. "But what about Hawaii?" Emma asked, her 8-year-old mind immediately focusing on the practical question. "Aren't we all going together?" "There's been a change of plans, sweetheart," I said, struggling to find words that wouldn't place blame or burden these innocent children with adult conflicts. "Will you bring us seashells?" Jackson asked, his 5-year-old logic making me smile despite everything. "We'll talk about the trip later," Stephanie interjected before I could answer. "Grandma's ride is here." I hugged them once more, memorizing the feel of their small arms around my neck, the scent of their hair, the warmth of their cheeks against mine. "I love you," I repeated because it was the only truth that mattered in that moment. As I walked toward the waiting car, suitcase in hand, Stephanie followed me to the door. "This is a mistake, Mom," she said quietly. "You're letting your hurt feelings destroy something that could have been wonderful for all of us." I turned to look at my daughter one last time before leaving. "No, Stephanie, you did that when you decided I wasn't worth including in your Christmas day." With that, I walked away, each step both impossibly difficult and surprisingly freeing. In the back seat of the rideshare, as the familiar neighborhood receded behind me, I pulled out my phone and composed an email to the travel agent, knowing that the decisions I made in the next few hours would forever alter the course of my relationship with my daughter and her family. But sometimes standing up for yourself means accepting that the path forward may be lonelier than you ever imagined it could be. The downtown hotel room was impersonal, but clean, with generic landscape paintings on the walls and a window overlooking a parking structure. It wasn't where I had imagined spending these days before Christmas, but it provided a quiet space to think and plan my next steps. My first call was to Patricia, the travel agent who had helped me arrange the Hawaii trip. Her professional demeanor cracked slightly when I explained the situation. "Oh, Maude, I'm so sorry," she said, genuine concern in her voice. "That's just awful. Let me see what I can do about canceling the reservations." I sat on the edge of the hotel bed as she tapped away at her keyboard, occasionally asking clarifying questions about which activities I wanted to cancel. Everything I told her: the resort rooms, the luau, the snorkeling expedition, the helicopter tour, the Christmas dinner reservation, the airport transfers, all of it. "The airline tickets will be trickier," she warned. "This close to the departure date, we're looking at significant cancellation fees if they can be canceled at all." "I understand," I said, resigned to the financial loss. Money seemed inconsequential compared to the emotional toll of the past 24 hours. "Let me see what options we have," Patricia continued. "Would you like me to look into rebooking just one ticket? Perhaps you could still take the trip on your own." The thought of spending Christmas alone in Hawaii, surrounded by happy families while nursing my wounded heart, was too painful to consider. "No," I replied firmly. "I just want to go home." By the end of the hour-long call, most of the arrangements had been canceled, some with partial refunds, others with complete loss of deposits. Patricia promised to email confirmation of all cancellations once they were processed, along with any refund information. The total financial damage was significant, nearly $8,000 lost, but the relief I felt at taking control of the situation outweighed my concerns about the money. "The resort has been notified of the cancellation," Patricia confirmed. "They'll be sending an email confirmation to both you and your daughter, since her email was also on the reservation." That meant Stephanie would soon know that I had followed through on my promise to cancel everything. I thanked Patricia for her help and ended the call, then switched my phone to silent mode, knowing what would likely come next. Sure enough, within 30 minutes my phone began lighting up with notifications. Multiple calls from Stephanie, text messages from Kyle with increasingly angry tones. Even a call from a number I didn't recognize that I suspected might be Kyle's parents. I ignored them all, needing time to process my own emotions before engaging with theirs. Instead, I opened my laptop and booked a flight home for that afternoon. The last-minute fare was expensive, but I would be back in my own house by nightfall. I also sent a brief email to Diana, my closest friend since college days, letting her know I was returning early and explaining in the vaguest terms that there had been a family disagreement about the Hawaii trip. As I packed the few items I had taken out of my suitcase, my phone continued to light up with messages. Finally, curiosity and a sense of obligation made me check what Stephanie had written. The sequence of texts told a story of escalating anger. "Mom, what have you done? The resort just emailed that everything's canceled. You can't do this. Call me now. Kyle is furious. His parents already arrived at the airport in California. The kids are crying. Is that what you wanted?" The last message hit hardest. "I can't believe you would ruin Christmas for your own grandchildren just to spite us." I sat heavily on the bed, my hands shaking. Was that what I had done? Had my hurt and anger led me to punish innocent children? For a moment, I second-guessed my decision. Maybe I should have found a compromise, allowed them to go without me, swallowed my pride and my pain. But then I remembered the secret chat, the weeks of deception, the casual cruelty of their plans to exclude me after I had spent months planning and saving for this family experience. No, I hadn't ruined Christmas. They had when they decided that my feelings and inclusion weren't important enough to consider. Still, I owed Stephanie an explanation. After composing and deleting several drafts, I finally sent a single message. "I've arranged my own flight home today. I've emailed you details about the cancellations and any refunds. We can discuss this when everyone has had time to cool down." Her response was immediate and cutting. "There's nothing to discuss. You've made your feelings perfectly clear. Don't expect a call from us on Christmas." The finality of her words struck me like a physical blow. Had I just destroyed my relationship with my only child? Had my stand for self-respect cost me my family? Tears welled again, but I blinked them back, determined to make it through the day. As I checked out of the hotel and headed to the airport, I kept my phone off, unable to bear any more accusations or expressions of disappointment. The airport was festively decorated Christmas trees and garlands, creating a holiday atmosphere that felt like a cruel joke, given my circumstances. Families with excited children rushed past me, heading to their own holiday adventures, while I sat alone at my gate, a solitary figure amid the seasonal joy. During the flight home, I stared out the window at the clouds below, thinking about holidays past. Stephanie as a little girl, waking us at dawn on Christmas morning, her excitement infectious. Frank, dressed as Santa one year, despite his discomfort with the costume, just to see her face light up. Family dinners with laughter and traditions that I had naively believed would continue forever. By the time my plane landed in my home city, darkness had fallen both outside and within my heart. The taxi ride to my empty house felt surreal, as though I was watching someone else's life unfold. I had left just 2 days ago, full of anticipation for the family holiday ahead. Now I was returning alone with no plans for Christmas, and the very real possibility that I had permanently damaged my relationship with my daughter. As the taxi pulled into my driveway, I noticed that my house was completely dark. I hadn't left any lights on, not expecting to return so soon. The emptiness awaiting me felt overwhelming. I paid the driver and dragged my suitcase up the front walk, each step heavier than the last. Inside the house was cold and silent. I didn't bother unpacking, simply leaving my suitcase in the entryway and making my way to the kitchen to put on the kettle for tea. As the water heated, I leaned against the counter, finally allowing the tears to flow freely. The sobs that tore from my throat were primal and raw, the culmination of betrayal loss and the terrifying uncertainty of what came next. Eventually, the kettle's whistle pulled me back to the present. I made my tea and carried it to the living room, where a small, artificial Christmas tree stood in the corner, decorated weeks ago in anticipation of returning to a Hawaiian Christmas. The incongruity of the festive decorations and my shattered holiday plans was almost too much to bear. I curled up on the sofa, pulled a throw blanket around my shoulders, and stared at the darkened tree. I hadn't even turned on the lights. What was the point? Christmas spirit felt as distant as Hawaii now. My phone, which I had finally turned back on, pinged with a message notification. Expecting more anger from Stephanie or Kyle, I nearly ignored it. But when I glanced at the screen, I saw it was from Diana. "Just got your email. Are you really home already? What happened? Call me if you need to talk." Diana's simple offer of support brought fresh tears to my eyes. I hesitated, not sure I could explain the situation without breaking down completely. But the alternative was sitting alone with my thoughts all night, which seemed unbearable. I dialed her number, and when she answered on the second ring, all I could manage was a choked, "Diana." "Oh, Maud," she said, understanding immediately that something was terribly wrong. "I'm coming over. Don't argue. I'll be there in 20 minutes. As I waited for my friend to arrive, I realized that while the family I had given birth to had rejected me, perhaps there were other kinds of family that could sustain me through the difficult days ahead. The thought wasn't exactly comforting, but it provided a tiny flicker of hope in the darkness that had engulfed me. The explosion of drama that followed my decision to cancel the trip was even more intense than I had anticipated. Before Diana arrived at my house that night, my phone had become a battlefield of accusations and anger. Kyle left a voicemail that made me flinch with its venom. "You selfish, manipulative old woman," his voice seethed through the speaker. "Do you have any idea what you've done? My parents flew all the way to LA only to find out the trip was canceled. The kids are devastated. Stephanie is in tears. All because you couldn't stand not being the center of attention for one day. One day, Maud, you've shown your true colors. And trust me, we won't forget this." His words cut deep, not just because of their cruelty, but because part of me wondered if he was right. Had I overreacted? Had pride and hurt feelings driven me to make a decision that hurt others unnecessarily? The doubt gnawed at me as text messages continued to arrive. Stephanie's messages had evolved from angry demands to emotional manipulation. "Emma keeps asking why Grandma doesn't want to see her at Christmas anymore. What am I supposed to tell her that her grandmother cares more about being in control than about her happiness?" Even more surprisingly, I received calls from numbers I didn't recognize that turned out to be Kyle's parents, and even some mutual friends they had contacted to share their version of events. Kyle's mother left a particularly cutting message. "I always told Kyle you were too involved in their lives. This proves it. A normal grandmother would want her grandchildren to have a relationship with both sides of the family. But you had to make it all about you, didn't you?" The narrative they were spreading painted me as an unstable, controlling mother who had impulsively canceled a family vacation out of jealousy and spite. There was no mention of their secret plans to exclude me on Christmas Day, no acknowledgement of the hurtful messages I had discovered. In their version, I was entirely the villain they, the innocent victims. By the time Diana arrived at my door, I was overwhelmed by the barrage of accusations. She found me sitting in my darkened living room, my phone clutched in my hand, tears streaming down my face. "Oh, honey," she said simply, setting down her purse and enveloping me in a hug. Diana and I had been friends for over 30 years, since our children were in preschool together. She had stood by me through Frank's illness, and death had listened to my concerns as Stephanie and Kyle's relationship developed, had encouraged me when I first conceived of the Hawaii trip as a way to reconnect with my family. Between sobs, I explained in everything. The months of planning, the growing distance, discovering the secret chat, the confrontation, and my decision to cancel the trip. Diana listened without interruption, her face growing increasingly troubled. "They were really going to leave you alone on Christmas Day after you paid for everything?" she asked, incredulous. I nodded, pulling up the screenshots I had taken of the chat before leaving Stephanie's house. "Read it yourself." Diana scrolled through the messages, her expression darkening with each swipe. "Maud, this is awful. I'm so sorry they did this to you." Her validation was like a lifeline in a stormy sea. After hours of questioning my own reactions and decisions, hearing someone else confirm that I had indeed been wronged provided momentary relief. But now they're telling everyone I ruined Christmas out of spite, I said, showing her the recent messages. "Kyle's mother is calling me unstable. They're using the children to make me feel guilty." Fresh tears threatened as I thought of Emma and Jackson's confusion and disappointment. Diana's face hardened with determination. "Then we need to make sure you're not alone for Christmas. You're coming to our house. No arguments." I started to protest, not wanting to impose on her family celebration, but she waved away my objections. "Mark and the kids would love to have you. You're family to us, Maud. Always have been." Her kindness nearly undid me again. I managed a watery smile and a thank you, though the thought of attending someone else's family Christmas felt both comforting and painful. It wouldn't be the same as being with my daughter and grandchildren, but it was infinitely better than spending the day alone in my empty house. The next day, the campaign against me escalated further. Stephanie posted on social media about how someone's selfish actions had ruined their family Christmas plans, generating a flood of sympathetic comments from friends and relatives who didn't know the full story. Kyle's sister, whom I had always had a cordial relationship with, called to tell me how disappointed she was in my behavior. "I always thought you were different, Maud," she said, her voice dripping with disapproval. "But to use your financial power to punish your daughter like this, it's just wrong." I tried to explain my side of the story, but she wasn't interested in hearing it. "Save it," she interrupted. "Kyle already told us what happened. You couldn't stand the thought of sharing your grandchildren for one day, so you ruined everyone's Christmas." After that call, I stopped answering my phone altogether. The one-sided narrative being spread about me was too painful to combat. Only Diana and a few close friends knew the truth, and their support became my sanctuary in the storm of accusations. The final blow came 3 days before Christmas when Stephanie appeared unannounced at my door. I hadn't seen her since leaving her house, and the sight of her standing on my porch, her expression a mixture of anger and calculated vulnerability, sent my heart racing. "We need to talk," she said, pushing past me into the entryway when I opened the door. I closed the door behind her, trying to stay calm. "I'm listening." "You need to fix this," she stated flatly. "The kids are heartbroken. Kyle's parents are out thousands of dollars for their flights. Our Christmas is ruined." "I'm sorry the children are disappointed," I said carefully. "But I'm not sorry I canceled a trip where I was going to be deliberately excluded and lied to. It was one day." She exploded, the calm facade cracking. "One day out of a 10-day trip, we were going to spend the other 9 days doing everything you wanted. It wasn't just any day, Stephanie, it was Christmas Day, after I specifically planned this trip so we could spend Christmas together," I pointed out. "And it wasn't just the plan itself. It was the deception, the secret chat, The things you all said about me. People say things in private they don't really mean, she countered dismissively. You're blowing this way out of proportion. Am I? I asked quietly. Because from where I stand, my only daughter and her husband were willing to hurt and humiliate me on a holiday I was paying for. That doesn't seem like something to minimize. Stephanie's face hardened. So that's it. You're not going to try to make this right. I didn't create this situation, Stephanie. I just refused to participate in it, I replied, fighting to keep my voice steady. Fine. Have it your way, she said coldly. But don't expect to see the kids anytime soon. Kyle doesn't want them around someone who would manipulate and hurt their mother the way you have. Her threat to keep my grandchildren from me was the cruelest blow yet. I felt the blood drain from my face, but I stood my ground. I hope you'll reconsider using the children as pawns, Stephanie. They deserve better than that. Don't lecture me about what my children deserve, she snapped, turning toward the door. You clearly don't care about their happiness, only your own. As she yanked open the door to leave, I made one last attempt to reach her. I love you, Stephanie. I always have, and I always will. When you're ready to talk about what really happened, I'll be here. She paused for just a moment, something flickering across her face. Doubt, perhaps, or a moment of clarity. But it was quickly replaced by the mask of righteous indignation she had worn throughout our conversation. Without another word, she walked out, closing the door firmly behind her. I stood in my entryway, shaking with emotion, realizing that the Hawaii trip wasn't the only thing that had been canceled. My relationship with my daughter as I had known it seemed to be over as well. And with Christmas just days away, the prospect of reconciliation felt as distant as the Hawaiian shores we would never see together. Christmas morning arrived with a silent, heavy snowfall that blanketed the neighborhood in white. Under different circumstances, it would have been a picture-perfect holiday scene, the kind featured on greeting cards and in classic Christmas movies. Instead, the beauty outside my window only emphasized the emptiness inside my home. I had barely slept, tossing and turning as memories of Christmas mornings passed, replayed in my mind. Stephanie, as a toddler, eyes wide with wonder at the twinkling lights. Frank, cooking his famous cinnamon rolls while we waited for our daughter to wake up. Later years, when we would video call with the grandchildren first thing in the morning, their excited voices bringing joy across the miles. This morning, there were no calls, no texts, no connection at all with my daughter or grandchildren. I had checked social media briefly the night before, only to find a post from Stephanie showing her family gathered around a hastily purchased small tree in their home with a caption about making the best of a difficult situation. The comment section was filled with sympathetic responses, many containing thinly veiled references to me as the cause of their ruined holiday. I made myself a cup of coffee and sat in my robe by the window watching the snow continue to fall. It was still early, not yet 7. Diana had insisted I join her family for Christmas dinner at 2, but that left hours to fill on my own. I considered calling some other friends, but hesitated to intrude on their family celebrations. Instead, I scrolled through photos on my phone, pictures of Emma and Jackson from our last visit together. Stephanie and me in happier times, even old scanned photos of Frank that I kept as precious digital memories. Each image was both comfort and torment, reminders of love and loss intertwined. At precisely 7 o'clock, the doorbell rang. The sound was so unexpected that I nearly spilled my coffee. Who would be visiting at this hour on Christmas morning? A flicker of hope rose. Perhaps Stephanie had reconsidered, had come to make peace. But I quickly tamped it down, knowing that was unlikely, given our last interaction. Setting down my coffee, I tightened the belt of my robe and made my way to the front door. Through the peephole, I saw not Stephanie but Diana, bundled in a heavy coat with a colorful scarf wound around her neck. Behind her stood her husband Mark and their adult son Ethan, all carrying bags and containers. Confused, I opened the door. Diana, what are you doing here? I thought we were meeting at 2. Diana's face broke into a wide smile. Change of plans. No one should wake up alone on Christmas morning, especially not my best friend. Before I could respond, they were bustling past me, bringing in what appeared to be breakfast items, gifts, and even a small portable speaker that Mark promptly set up on my coffee table. We're not taking no for an answer, Diana announced, unwinding her scarf. Christmas breakfast at your place, then dinner at ours. Non-negotiable. Tears welled in my eyes at their kindness. You didn't have to do this. Yes, we did, Mark said firmly, already heading to the kitchen with what looked like a casserole dish. Diana told me what happened. It's not right, and you shouldn't be alone today. Ethan, who was in his late 20s and had known me his entire life, gave me a quick hug. Plus, Mom makes way too much food anyway. Might as well spread it around. As they moved around my kitchen with familiar ease, setting out plates warming the breakfast casserole Diana had prepared, and even brewing fresh coffee, I felt a wave of gratitude so intense it nearly overwhelmed me. These people, not related by blood but connected through decades of friendship, had gone out of their way to ensure I wasn't alone on what they knew would be an incredibly difficult day. Diana handed me a steaming mug of coffee prepared exactly how I liked it. Go put on some real clothes, she instructed gently. We'll have everything ready when you come down. I did as she suggested, changing quickly into comfortable slacks and a festive red sweater I had originally planned to wear for Christmas dinner. As I brushed my hair and applied a touch of makeup, I could hear laughter and conversation drifting up from my kitchen. Sounds I had not expected to fill my home today. When I returned downstairs, I found my dining table transformed. Diana had brought a small poinsettia for a centerpiece, cloth napkins in Christmas patterns, and even battery-operated candles that flickered with a warm glow. Mark was setting out the plates of breakfast casserole, while Ethan arranged fresh fruit on a platter. Just in time, Diana said, gesturing for me to take my seat. Everything's ready. Throughout breakfast, they kept the conversation light and engaging carefully, avoiding mention of Stephanie or the canceled trip unless I brought it up. Instead, they shared family stories, neighborhood gossip, and their plans for the coming year. It was exactly the distraction I needed, a few hours, where the pain receded enough that I could laugh and engage without the constant weight of rejection pressing down on me. After we ate, Diana insisted we move to the living room. Time for presents, she announced with a childlike enthusiasm that made me smile despite myself. Presents? But I don't have anything for you, I protested, feeling embarrassed. My gifts for them were still wrapped and packed in the suitcase I had never fully unpacked intended to be given after I returned from Hawaii. Nonsense, Diana waved away my concern. Your friendship is gift enough. Besides, these are just small things. The small things turned out to be thoughtfully selected gifts that brought fresh tear to my eyes. A soft, luxurious throw blanket from Diana. For those nights when you need extra comfort. A best-selling mystery novel from Mark, who knew my reading preferences well, and a gift card to my favorite gardening center from Ethan for spring planning. As I thanked them, my phone suddenly pinged with an email notification. I almost ignored it, not wanting to break the warm atmosphere with potential negativity from Stephanie or Kyle. But Diana noticed my glance toward the phone. Go ahead and check, she encouraged. We don't mind. The email wasn't from Stephanie, but from Samuel Garcia, the manager of the Royal Palms Resort in Maui, where we had been scheduled to stay. Curious, I opened it. Dear Ms. Thompson, it read, I was deeply sorry to hear about the unfortunate circumstances that led to the cancellation of your family vacation. Our reservations team shared your situation with me, and while we normally cannot offer refunds this close to scheduled arrivals, I would like to make an exception in your case. The email went on to explain that while they couldn't refund the entire amount, they were returning 60% of what I had paid for the rooms, and we're adding a complimentary week stay to be used anytime in the coming year. We believe in the healing power of Hawaii, Samuel wrote, and would be honored to welcome you when the time is right, whether with family or perhaps with friends who truly appreciate your generous spirit. I read the email aloud to Diana, Mark, and Ethan, my voice shaking slightly with emotion. "That's wonderful!" Diana exclaimed, squeezing my hand. "And you know what? When you're ready to use that complimentary stay, I might know someone who'd love to go with you." She grinned mischievously, pointing to herself. For the first time since discovering the secret chat, I felt a genuine smile spread across my face. "I'd like that," I said softly. "I'd like that very much." As the day continued with Christmas music playing softly in the background and the warm presence of friends who had become family surrounding me, I began to envision a different kind of future than the one I had planned. It wouldn't include the Hawaiian Christmas I had dreamed of sharing with my daughter and grandchildren, but it might include other joys, other connections, other ways of finding meaning and belonging. Later, as we prepared to leave for Diana's house, where more of their extended family would gather for dinner, my phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, but something compelled me to answer, rather than letting it go to voicemail, as I had been doing with unknown calls. "Hello?" I answered cautiously. "Ms. Thompson, this is Jennifer Wilson, Kyle's sister." The voice on the other end sounded hesitant, very different from the accusatory tone she had taken in her previous call. I tensed, bracing for another attack. "Yes, Jennifer, what can I do for you?" I wanted to call and apologize," she said, surprising me completely. "I spoke to you harshly the other day without knowing the full story. Since then, I've learned some things that made me see the situation differently." As Diana and her family discreetly moved to the kitchen to give me privacy, Jennifer explained that she had been shown the actual chat messages by Kyle's mother, who had been complaining about me to family members. "When I read what they were planning, how they talked about you, I was shocked," Jennifer admitted. "That's not how family treats each other. I wanted you to know that not everyone thinks you were wrong to cancel the trip. What they planned to do to you was cruel." Her unexpected support brought fresh tears to my eyes. "Thank you for telling me that," I managed. "It means a lot." "There's something else you should know," Jennifer continued, her voice dropping slightly. "This isn't the first time Kyle has orchestrated something like this. He's always been controlling about family relationships. He did similar things with his ex-wife, gradually isolating her from her family." This new information sent a chill through me. Had I been right to worry about Kyle's influence on Stephanie all along? Was there more to the story than just holiday planning gone wrong? "I'm worried about Stephanie and the kids," Jennifer confessed. "But I didn't know who else to call. I thought you should know." We spoke for several more minutes, with Jennifer sharing concerns about patterns she had observed in her brother's behavior over the years. By the time we ended the call, my mind was spinning with new perspectives and worries about my daughter's situation that went beyond our immediate conflict. As I rejoined Diana, Mark, and Ethan for the drive to their home, I found myself viewing the Hawaii cancellation through a new lens. Perhaps what had seemed like the worst Christmas of my life was actually the beginning of an important awakening, not just about my relationship with Stephanie, but about larger patterns that needed to be recognized and addressed for all our sakes. The day that had begun in solitary sadness had transformed into something entirely unexpected, still tinged with loss, but now also holding new connections, surprising kindness from strangers, and even potentially important insights that might eventually help heal my fractured family. As we drove through the snow-covered streets, I gazed out at the twinkling lights decorating the homes we passed. This wasn't the Christmas I had planned or wanted, but perhaps it was the Christmas I needed, one that was teaching me about different kinds of family, unexpected grace, and the strength I hadn't known I possessed. The days following Christmas unfolded in ways I never could have anticipated. What I had feared would be a time of unbearable loneliness, instead, became a period of unexpected connection and growing clarity. Diana insisted I join her family for their New Year's celebration, as well refusing to let me mope alone, as she put it. Her steady presence and unwavering support provided a foundation that kept me from collapsing under the weight of family estrangement. My phone remained largely silent from Stephanie and Kyle, though Kyle's sister Jennifer called twice more each conversation, revealing more about the dynamics in their household that concerned her. According to Jennifer, Kyle had a history of creating division between his partners and their families, positioning himself as the protector against perceived slights and criticisms. He did the same thing with Allison, his first wife, Jennifer explained during one call. First, it was limiting holidays with her parents, then questioning their motivations for wanting to see their grandchild, then eventually cutting them off completely. By the time they divorced, she was isolated from everyone who cared about her. Her words sent a chill through me as I recognized similar patterns in how my own relationship with Stephanie had deteriorated since her marriage. The gradual reduction in contact, Kyle's comments about my parenting advice being outdated or intrusive, the way Stephanie began to echo his criticisms of me, all signs I had dismissed or rationalized at the time. I should have seen it sooner, I lamented to Diana over coffee in early January. There were so many red flags. Don't blame yourself, she said firmly. These situations unfold gradually, and when it's someone you love, you make excuses because you want to believe the best. Diana was right, but the knowledge didn't completely absolve my sense of having failed my daughter somehow. If Stephanie was indeed in a controlling relationship, my cancellation of the Hawaii trip might have played directly into Kyle's narrative about me being unreliable and unstable. Yet what alternative did I have? Accepting their deception and planned exclusion would have been a different kind of failure, a failure to stand up for my own dignity and worth. This painful paradox led me to seek professional guidance. In mid-January, I began seeing Dr. Elaine Forster, a therapist specializing in family estrangement. Our weekly sessions provided a safe space to process my grief, examine the complex dynamics at play, and develop strategies for moving forward with or without reconciliation. Family estrangement is rarely about a single incident, Dr. Forster explained during one session. Usually, it's the culmination of long-standing tensions, unmet expectations, and communication patterns that haven't been addressed. She encouraged me to reflect on my own role in the relationship dynamics, not to assume blame, but to identify areas where I might have contributed to difficulties. It was challenging work that often left me emotionally drained, but gradually provided insights I hadn't been able to reach on my own. Your reaction to the secret chat was entirely reasonable, she assured me. Anyone would feel betrayed by that level of deception. But now we need to focus on what comes next, how to leave the door open for reconciliation while establishing healthy boundaries. Under her guidance, I began writing letters to my grandchildren, not to send immediately, but to maintain my connection to them in my heart, and to have ready when contact might be reestablished. I wrote about ordinary things, the cardinal family that visited my bird feeder each morning, the new recipe I tried for banana bread, the funny squirrel antics I observed from my kitchen window. Someday I hoped they would know that not a day passed when I didn't think of them. January also brought an unexpected development regarding the canceled Hawaii trip. The resort manager, Samuel Garcia, emailed again with news that most of the special activities I had booked were being refunded in full rather than just the partial refund originally offered. "We've reviewed your case further," he wrote, "and feel this is the right thing to do given the circumstances." This financial relief, combined with the complimentary week stay still available to me, sparked a new possibility. Perhaps Hawaii could still be part of my future, just in a different way than I had envisioned. I began researching solo travel tips, considering when I might feel emotionally ready to use the resort credit. The idea of traveling alone was both intimidating and oddly liberating. "You should do it," Diana encouraged when I mentioned the possibility. "And if you don't want to go alone, I'm just a phone call away." Meanwhile, I focused on rebuilding my life in practical ways. I joined a support group for parents estranged from adult children, finding comfort in the shared experience of others walking similar paths. Their stories helped me feel less alone, less defective as a mother. Many had found ways to maintain their own well-being while holding space for possible reconciliation, a balance I aspired to achieve. I also rediscovered interests I had neglected while focusing so intensely on my role as mother and grandmother. I enrolled in a painting class at the community center, something I had always wanted to try but never made time for. I expanded my small garden, planning an ambitious spring planting that would keep my hands and mind occupied in the months ahead. I volunteered at the local literacy center, reading to children whose unguarded affection helped ease the ache of missing my own grandchildren. Life developed a new rhythm, different from what I had planned, but not without its own meaning and moments of joy. Dr. Forster called this creating a life worth living, regardless of reconciliation. And though the concept initially felt like giving up, I gradually recognized it as a form of self-respect and healing. February arrived with no direct contact from Stephanie, though I occasionally received secondhand news through mutual acquaintances. I learned that Kyle's parents had indeed visited for a belated Christmas celebration, that Emma had won a school art contest, that Jackson had started to ball. Each snippet of information was both precious and painful reminders of the life continuing without me. Then on a cold Wednesday in late February, nearly 2 months after the canceled trip, my phone displayed a name I had almost given up hope of seeing: Stephanie. Not a call, but an email with a subject line that made my heart race. "Coffee next week." The message was brief and cautious. "Mom, I've been doing a lot of thinking. I wonder if you'd be willing to meet for coffee next Thursday at 2 p.m. Just us. Green Mountain Cafe on Elm Street. Let me know. Steph." My hands trembled as I read and reread the message, analyzing every word for hidden meanings or traps. Was this a genuine olive branch or another opportunity for accusations? Did "just us" mean Kyle didn't know about this proposed meeting? The signature Steph, rather than Stephanie, caught my attention too. I had always called her Stephanie, but many of her friends used the shorter form. I consulted both Diana and Dr. Forster before crafting my response, wanting to be open, but cautious, welcoming, but not desperate. "Yes, I'd like that," I finally wrote back. "Green Mountain at 2 p.m. works for me. Looking forward to seeing you. Mom." Simple, direct, positive, but not effusive or apologetic. Dr. Forster had emphasized the importance of approaching any reconciliation attempt without either defensive armor or complete vulnerability. "Balance," she had advised, "open heart, clear boundaries." The week until our meeting crawled by at an excruciating pace. I rehearsed possible conversations in my mind, prepared for accusations, practiced responses that would be honest without escalating conflict. I wavered between hope and dread, between longing for reconnection and fear of further rejection. When Thursday finally arrived, I chose my outfit with absurd care. A blue sweater Stephanie had once complimented, comfortable slacks, minimal jewelry. I arrived at the cafe 20 minutes early, selecting a quiet corner table and ordering herbal tea to calm my nerves. As 2 o'clock approached, I watched the door with increasing anxiety, half convinced she wouldn't come. But at exactly 2, the door opened, and there she was, my only child, the person I had loved longer and more deeply than anyone on earth beside her father. She looked tired, I noticed immediately. There were new lines around her eyes, and she had lost weight since I'd last seen her. She scanned the cafe, spotted me, and walked over with an uncertain smile. "Hi, Mom," she said simply, her voice neither warm nor cold. "Hello, Stephanie," I replied, resisting the urge to stand and hug her, sensing she needed physical space. "Thank you for suggesting this." She ordered a latte from the hovering waitress, then sat across from me, fidgeting with her wedding ring, a nervous habit she'd had since childhood. "How have you been?" she asked after an awkward silence, the question both mundane and enormous, given all that had transpired. "I've been finding my way," I answered honestly. "It's been difficult, but I'm doing better now. How about you? How are the children?" "They're good. Emma's reading has really taken off, and Jackson is obsessed with dinosaurs these days." A genuine smile touched her lips when she spoke of her children, but it quickly faded. "Things have been challenging at home." Something in her tone sent a warning signal. I wanted desperately to ask for details to find out if Jennifer's concerns about Kyle's controlling behavior were justified, but I knew pressing too hard could shut down this fragile communication before it had really begun. Instead, I kept my response simple. "I'm sorry to hear that. I've missed you all very much." Stephanie nodded, her eyes dropping to her coffee cup. "The kids ask about you, especially Emma. She wanted to know why we don't see Grandma anymore." The thought of my grandchildren wondering about my absence created a physical ache in my chest. "What did you tell her? That grown-ups sometimes have disagreements they need to work through," she said. "That it wasn't because you didn't love her." "Thank you for that," I said softly. "Because I do love them. And you. That never changed." Our conversation continued cautiously, skirting around the Hawaii incident directly, while acknowledging the rift it had created. Stephanie didn't apologize for the secret plan or the hurtful messages, and I didn't press for one. This wasn't the time for complete resolution, but for beginning a tentative bridge across the chasm between us. As our cups emptied, Stephanie glanced at her watch. "I should go soon. I told Kyle I was meeting with a colleague from the hospital." The fact that she had lied to her husband,